Thanks everyone for coming to my lightning talk. I'm super excited for this crash course. Um, Obviously, in today's age, everyone could really shoot a video. So I'm really just going to walk through some of the best practices for shooting video, how I typically approach it, and hopefully everyone could gain some great takeaways from this. I'd really like to show everyone just a collection of work that I've been fortunate to shoot over the years, since a lot of this is going to relate to some of the topics I'm going to cover today. Cool. So I'm going to break everything down into three of the main things that I feel are important to video. And that would be framing, lighting, and sound recording. I did want to add editing to this lightning talk, but I felt that was a lightning talk in itself since there's so much to cover there. So who knows, maybe we'll do a lightning talk in the future on editing too. So the first thing, framing. So for me, framing is really about getting as much information, as much of the action as possible in one shot, in that one frame. So when I'm framing a shot, I really think about, what can I capture in the background? What can I capture in the foreground? Does it tell a story about the subject that I'm filming? Does it capture where they are also? What location it might be? Just really setting the scene. And if you could do it, if you could capture as much as possible in that one shot, that would be ideal. So a lot of this about framing is going to be very similar to photography. So if any of you have, a photography background, a lot of this won't be new to you. So there's obviously the rule of thirds. So what the rule of thirds is, you really want to keep your subject on the left or the right third of the frame. I'll get into this a little bit later. You also want to have just enough headroom. If you were to shoot a medium close-up shot like this one, but if a whole nother head of that person could fit above that person's head, then that's way too much headroom. If we were cropping his head, then that would also be very odd. The other element for framing is the lead room or the nose room, some people could also call it. And that's really about having that negative space in the direction that the person is moving towards. So in this scenario with the swimmer, I have the negative space on the right side. If it was the opposite, you'd have the negative space on the left side. I'm going to break it down here in this shot as well, since this really kind of has an example of all those points. So for me, this is just enough headroom that I would typically shoot for a medium close-up shot like this for an interview. He's on the right third of the frame. And then if I add the rule of thirds, he's also along the rule of third line on the right side. And it has proper lead room or nose room since he's facing screen left and the negative space is on the left side. If it was on the opposite side, facing the opposite direction, we have the negative space on the right side. And you'll see here, same intersecting lines there with the rule of thirds. If he was facing the camera, however, I would definitely have him placed directly in the center. So if it was an interview where the person was speaking directly to the camera, I would have them right in the middle of the rule of thirds. Okay, this is my favorite, lighting. So technically with lighting, the first step I do is setting the white balance or the color temperature on the camera. I'm not going to get into that since a lot of us have phones with autofocus, auto white balance. So it automatically sets the color temperature. So I'm really going to talk more about my favorite part about lighting, and that's really controlling the light so it really works in your favor to set the scene. My first approach to lighting is key-on-key lighting. This means that all of the lights are all on one side of the subject's face. So I keep all the lights on one side. A lot of the time you hear a different way where there's 3 or more lighting setups where they're all around the subject's face. I personally don't prefer that since it kind of makes the lighting a little bit flat. So my personal preference is really key-on-key lighting. So to really just have all the sources on one side of the subject's face. The other thing is available lighting. So this is really just about embracing what you have and just working what you have in a scene. So if this was an exterior, I would definitely be using the sun as the backlight for the subject. But if it was an interior scene like this one you see here, I'm looking for windows. I'm looking for, like you have that skylight there. I'm just taking advantage of what I have there. Especially if I don't have the time to set up a light. So I'm always avoiding ceiling lights, fan lights for interiors. These are the least flattering lights. So the first thing I do if I'm showing up to a shoot for an interior shoot is I turn off all the ceiling lights, all the house lights if I can, especially since the bulbs usually in these lights could be fluorescent and it could also cause a flicker. The other thing, it's just really just not flattering, like I said. The other element that I like to incorporate in lighting is negative fill. A lot of the time, it's not really about adding the light, it's really about subtracting it. So I'll get into negative fill, but really this is really about subtracting that light so it just adds a little bit more dimension on the person's face. And you could see what a typical setup. So this would be an example of my go-to setup if I only had one light. This is honestly a bare bones kind of setup. This is just one light and negative fill. So you see the negative fill on the left side there. That's really just a black solid fabric that I bring. And that's like my go-to, and I always bring that on a shoot. If I don't have enough time to set up other lights, this is honestly my first approach. You can see what the finished interview shot looks like there, and you can see the effect of the negative fill on the right side of his face there. Another great topic is sound. This is definitely one of the most important factors of video, and not many people see it that way, but you could probably have a bad video, and if you have amazing audio, it could just make a huge difference on the video, because if you're still telling the story and you have that great audio, you could have probably just saved your video. The only thing with audio though, with film, is about keeping the mics hidden. The other element is that unlike cameras where you have autofocus, auto white balance, and all these elements, it's really about giving the microphone direction of where you want it to capture that audio. They don't have brains like a camera, so you really need to give them direction. So my goal is I always want to be as close as possible to the talent. And the only way I do that without a boom, I'll get into a boom a little bit later, is a lavalier, or it's also called a lav. And I usually tape that on the person's chest, or I tape it on just like the one undershirt under the person's shirt. This keeps it hidden. It's the closest I can get to the person's mouth. And it's usually the best placement's right above the chest, right on the chest above the sternum. A lot of these mics, they're really expensive. A lot of the times they're like over $300 or $600 because it comes with a transmitter and a receiver. But there's options now. You could get them for $50 and you can connect them to your phone to record in like memo mode when you do like an audio memo. So they've gotten very affordable now. And this is like the ideal setup for like a scrappy kind of approach to a lav mic setup. I do typically record sound on my own for all my shoots, but you're probably wondering, you always see film sets with a boom operator holding a boom mic. I like to avoid this because, especially when I shoot with multiple cameras all at once, because their boom is always in the frame. So you always have me probably saying, all right, boom is in the frame. Boom is in the frame. It's still there, still there. So I really just record audio on my own unless there's more than 2 subjects on a shoot. Also, super important for every shoot is I always record wild sound or room tone. This is 30 seconds of just nobody talking. A lot of times on shoots, people still end up whispering and stuff. And I'm like, no, 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 like literally, like I really don't want anyone to talk. We're just going to capture whatever it might be. So like in this scenario, this was like miles away from San Diego airport. There was planes all the time. So I'm like, all right, we're going to record 30 seconds of just planes, because no matter what, I'm going to have this 30-minute interview with just planes passing by. So I just recorded 30 seconds of no one talking. And I do this on every shoot. And it really just helps in post. It's same thing with interiors. Maybe your fridge is running in the background or you have this fan humming. So I recorded 30 seconds of that and it really helps. And as we always say, if all else fails, you fix it in post. So that wild sound or that room tone just saves me every time when I'm trying to cut audio together. If I'm doing sound effects, I honestly stack a ton of Foley or fake sound effects to just make whatever that sound might be. It could be just dirt and like crashing into, like, I don't know, a mountain biker crashing into a turn with a bunch of dirt, but I actually use up a bunch of like water sounds to make it sound like that dirt. And I'll use some debris sounds and everything. Like I said, this is definitely a whole lightning talk on its own. So I hope to talk about it in the future, but always fix it in the post. This is always an alternative. All right, bonus round. I'm really excited about this. So I definitely want to walk through some of my favorite industry words, and these are the essential tools that I have on every shoot. And yeah, they're definitely some of my favorite words. So let's dig in. First one, pizza box. I always bring a pizza box on a shoot, and it's not what you think. It is not a pizza box. It actually looks like this. You can cut it up any way you want, 2 feet by 4 feet, 4 feet by 4 feet. It is just foam core or beadboard, like we call it. You could get this at Home Depot. You could get this at Lowe's. You can cut it up. And I use it to bounce light back onto the subject. It diffuses the light. It gives a whole nother, it gives a whole diffused look for the lighting and just really makes the subject look really good. This is a whole nother tool that you'll see on every major film shoot. If you're ever in the city or you're passing by a film production, you're always going to find these, and they're called apple boxes. And they look like this. They come in 4 sizes: full apple, half apple, quarter apple, eighth apple. And they're so simple. They're literally apple boxes. And everyone uses them for, I don't even know how long now. It's honestly one of the most timeless tools. And I use them to put the camera on one of these. Sometimes I have the subject. If one subject is shorter than another and they're doing an interview, I'll literally have one of them stand on one of these just to match. So the framing, so it's all leveled. I've also seen this used for to level off dolly tracks. I won't get into that, but this is honestly used for almost anything. I'll have subjects also sit on these during an interview. So it really helps having these on every shoot. C-47s. No, this is not a military aircraft. I mean, it is actually a military aircraft, but on a film shoot, they're actually just clothespins. And they're really just used to hold gels on lights to change the color temperature of the light. They're also, another thing that exists is C-74s, which is literally a clothespin inside out, basically like a tweezer. And it's used for almost the same thing pretty much. It's honestly on every shoot, you'll always find these. All right, another one here, stingers. Stingers are just extension cords. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say extension cords on a shoot. So if you're saying, if you want a 50-foot stinger, you want a 50-foot extension cord. If you want a 25-foot stinger, it's a 25-foot extension cord. All right, last one here, a bag of f-stops. This does not exist. So there's no such thing as a bag of f-stops. If you are a production intern and it's your first day at work, a DP might tell you to go to the nearest rental house and go get a bag of f-stops. It is an inside joke in the industry. Do not go and get it. However, I did look up online and it does exist. Someone is selling it right now for $7. And it's literally a bag of, it's just a piece of paper that says, that has all the f-stops listed. And f-stops are just the number on a lens of all the different apertures when you're changing the iris on a lens. But definitely do not go and grab a bag of f-stops if it's your first day on a shoot. That's it for my crash course. Let me know if you have any questions.
Tony, you forgot one more.
Oh yeah, what is it?
You got to go into the dead cat.
Oh, the dead cat, like for audio, right? Yeah, the boom mic. So I wish I had a picture of that too. It's really just like this furry, it's just the fur that goes on the boom mic that you'll see when you have the boom operators like holding it over people. It's just, that's the dead cat. It's just that furry mic that's hanging over your head, like about a foot over your head, over the frame. There's so many industry words. I definitely wanted to just cover some of my favorite ones, especially the ones that I bring on every shoot. Gaff tape is another essential tool that I bring always with me because it's like the strongest tape and it just works for everything. I've seen some of the funniest things. If you go to Instagram and go to Shitty Rigs, that's the name of the Instagram account, that is like some of the funniest rigs that you'll ever see.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Great presentation.
Thank you.
I remember when I was part of the film crew at my startup doing the Kickstarter video, like all these action shots with like motorbikes like that, and it was the hardest thing was renting the red camera and like how much that cost and trying to maximize it. So can you talk a little bit around like the gear you use, like what you rent, what you own, like, and where those kind of pinch points are, like, hey, this is super expensive to have all this stuff, so we need to maximize it?
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So a lot of times, family members, friends are like, hey, I'm thinking about buying a camera. What camera should I buy? It's like, well, you have one. It's actually in your pocket right now. It's like $1,200. It's your phone. And I'm like, that's like the best camera right now if you need to shoot. But yeah, obviously we don't shoot with iPhones for a branded content piece, like some of the pieces you saw earlier. So my suggestion for a lot of those things is like, I never buy, I always rent. And a lot of that is because of the reason that just technology just changes so fast. So like the red camera that you mentioned, like if I were to buy the latest V Raptor red camera right now, that is it's like close to $30,000. And that doesn't even include anything. That's just the brain of the camera. It has no lens. It doesn't even have a monitor on it. It's just this box. So by the time you start adding it with lenses and everything, you're definitely over, like you're close to 100,000 or more. But obviously some people want to own a camera too. So I always say definitely go for DSLRs. They're like, anywhere between $2,000 to $6,000. And like, those are gonna help you for years and years for sure. And red cams are also gonna, if you buy a red camera, yeah, like that's also time, it's definitely future proof for a very, very long time because so like the V Raptor, for example, is like, that's 8K resolution. Like you can't even play 8K resolution on your TV at home. So like, that's gonna like last you for many, many years to come also. So it's like, I always say like, if you're doing the branded content stuff, it's like shoot with the highest quality camera you could possibly afford at a rental price. So like a red might cost like anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 maybe for the weekend, maybe with no lens on it. Yeah, shoot with the highest quality camera you can. If the quality is not the thing and you're really just trying to just shoot something, I'm like, hey, you have a phone, and like that's going to do the job to tell the story. It's like if you have great audio and you have an iPhone, you're like already close to there to telling a great story.
Android.
Android. Oh.
Yeah. I don't know about Android. I'm not sure.
The one way I would add to this, to what Tony said, is think about where the audience is going to view the content. Are they going to watch it on their phone or on their computer?
Right.
You don't need, a 4K or 8K camera. Usually, like 1080p is still good for today's standards. So like if you want to go on a budget, you can buy a camera, a DSLR, like an old Canon, like 60D or something, even for like $300-400, and spend more money on the lenses than on the camera itself. Because I think the lenses matter as well. So, if you spend $1,000 or $2,000 on lenses, you can still get great quality with an old camera.
Yeah. And that's a really great point that you brought up about lenses is lenses almost never change in price as years go by. So like I have a camera right now from 2012. Back then it was, I think, $8,000. It is now, I don't know, you could get it for $1,000 right now, literally. But my lens that I also bought that same year is still the same price. It's still $1,800. It has not changed. So like lenses really don't change in price if you have a really good lens.
Do you miss doing some of these action shoots now that you're at levels, or are you still scratching that itch somehow?
No, I think it's pretty awesome. So like the difference is like with levels, it's like we're, the whole goal is scaling production. So we could just shoot as much as possible, as fast as possible. And I feel like, for a content strategy, like that is an amazing goal. And the thing with these shoots, like the ones you saw there, it's just like, a production like that could take weeks or months before it's like even released. And when you're going for a content strategy, it's just like, and you want to release as much as possible, it's just, that's not the approach you want, unless you could do so many of those productions all at once within the span of a month. It would just, to get from the beginning, from pre-production to production to post-production, it's just, it could potentially take months. And it's just like, would you rather have that one amazing video? It's just like, cool, we're not going to have any videos for 3 months. It's like, we just threw all the money into this documentary and it took 3 months. And then, or would you rather just shoot as much as possible, a bunch of great stories within the span of 3 months, and you'll have like 500 pieces of content.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Mike D, let's get some action level shots too.
What's your favorite type of production to do out of everything that you can shoot?
Trying to think, like, do you mean like the type of, like, is it like athletes or something like that? Is that what you mean? Or like, is it food? Is it athletes, or what kind of styles you're thinking?
Run and gun shoots versus like sit down talking head shoots. Like they all have their own approach. Sure. What do you love? Like, what's the thing that where you like, and they all have different pre-production as far as like planning and going in.
Right.
What's the one that you go, I love doing these ones?
Yeah, I would say definitely run and gun for sure. Cause it's just, you're not relying on like, oh, I have to like haul all these lights and all this equipment. Like if it's just like, you're just solo, and it's just like, hey, we're shipping you out there. Like it's just you and the camera and a microphone, and that's it. It's like show us what you got, show us what you could do. I think like that is so cool. Cause it's like, you're really just like, okay, like where am I going to place this subject to get the best lighting? And like, you're starting to just use whatever you have. Like you're really kind of Jackie Channing the whole thing, where he's like, when he's like planning his stunts, he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to use this sweater and I'm going to wrap it around the person or something. So it's like, you're really just using what you have. right in front of you. And I think that's a cool thing about run and gun. Not sure how we are on time right now, but thank you so much, everyone.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
It's really
everyone.
cool.